That shit is gnarly.
So last weekend, a bunch of us went out to Jake's Rocks in the Allegheny National Forest in Pennsylvania. Everybody kind of went out at their own groups on Friday at different times. I was in Indianapolis on Friday and had been in the car all day, and so I didn't feel like hopping in the car Friday night again, only to get there after dark. So I got up really early on Saturday morning and met everybody. When I got there, everyone was like cooking breakfast and chilling out and doing whatever. So I went for a short gravel ride and then chilled a bit too, and then we all went out and hit the mountain bike trails. The trails at the top near the campground are great because they're like campground. I use that loosely. It's very primitive camping with parking and fire rings, but they're really cool because they're kind of as hard as you want to make them. They're really nice and flowy. The trails at Jake's are designed awesome. So you could kind of hit them as hard as you want, you know, by pedaling as fast as you want. They're more undulating than like down the mountain and stuff like that. So it's really great for, I think, pretty much all skill levels. Like I said, you just kind of could go at whatever pace you want and make it as spicy as you want it to be. There are some rocky sections, and this year was the first time it's only my second year out there, but I was able to roll over them a lot better because I was riding my Gunnar with its 55 millimeter tires on 700C wheels, and I also had the sweep back bars, which I felt like just gave me a lot more control, and I was able to even kind of move back off the saddle really easily and still maintain control. So it was a lot of fun. You can totally underbike Jake's. Some people were. Erin was riding her 90s Cannondale for some of the runs. A friend Annie, she was riding her gravel bike, which I think had 40 millimeter tires on it. The thing is, if you underbike it, you just have to pick your lines a lot better, and then there are certain trails, which I'll get into, that you might want to avoid. But yeah, so we rode around the top, like got to the main trailhead and stuff like that. And then there's a couple trails that we rode last year a few times, and then we usually ride a number of times, you know, over the weekends. Coal Planter being one, and it's just a blast to ride because it's this trail that kind of, part of it has like a long downhill that's fairly straight, but up and down, and you could just like really pick up a lot of speed. It's a lot of fun. And this year I was actually hitting some of the rock features instead of avoiding them. You know, I avoid some you can't avoid, but the ones on the side, I was actually going over some. I was actually trying to get the bike off the ground a little bit on some of the bumps, which Otis behind me told me a couple of times I actually did. I am not some strong mountain biker. If you're new to the channel, you know, it's not something I do that often, but this was like by far the most sendy I've ever been. I think a combination between the bike and just getting a little more confident now. But yeah, I think the bike played probably the biggest role in me being able to do what I did. And I'm not saying I never put a foot down. I do put a foot down. I do walk something that I'm not comfortable with. But I really love that about Jake's. There's not a ton of walking you have to do, even if you are a little underbiked or on a full rigid. We did hit some trails we had never hit, and some of the ones that went all the way down the mountain were really steep, and not being used to those and like the big bank turns and stuff like that and being so far forward, there's some of them I really did ride the brakes a lot, but I don't even think they would be trails that I would have had the confidence to go down a few years ago. So I still felt like even though I kind of rode the brakes, it was an improvement. I feel like if I rode those a couple times in a row too, I wouldn't be full send on them, but that I would get more confident in, you know, what was going to happen. Because on some steep bits or some sharp curves, you don't know what's around the corner if it's your first time. So you really can't just go crazy. I know true mountain bikers probably would. They have the confidence, they have the bikes for it and all that. But yeah, so for someone who's not that, you know, great or not that experienced, you're still able to ride down them, but it would take multiple times, I think, to be really good at them. One of the things we do to manage different skill levels in either sending it downhill or climbing up a lot of the steep bits that exist at Jake's is we kind of make a little plan, and we will hit one of the long downhill sections, and then when it kind of like runs out of speed and hits an intersection, we'll just kind of all wait up for each other there. So when the biggest amount of people go out where we have the biggest spread in skill levels, that's just kind of what we do. Or at the top of a very steep climb where everyone might get a little separated, where you're just really spinning, you know, really spinning to get up it, because there are very, very steep bits at Jake's. And sometimes that's when I put my foot down the most, is I feel like it was going up some of these steep bits and then having to get over a rock or a section of rocks. But yeah, then we'll wait up at like a spot like that, you know, We even do beer stops and all the things like that. That's how we ride. So we'll go out as a group and kind of just regroup a number of times on the ride and not let anyone get lost, so we know they're not hurt or having a mechanical or anything like that, so no one ever gets too far behind. And then what we'll do is kind of make a decision and maybe go back to camp. People could refill their water and all that stuff. It's important to know there are no amenities at Jake's, so you kind of bring in and pack out everything you're going to need. There's just some pit toilets by the trailhead. That's it. So yeah, if you go, bring what you need. But yeah, we go back and then people make the decision on if they want to head back out and do another ride, what kind of ride they want it to be and all that. So I think I went for 3 rides on the first day. Yeah, the morning ride, we did a fairly long one. And by long for mountain biking, because you just, all that climbing and even all that downhill really wears you out. Went out, did another mountain bike ride, and then went to do a gravel ride towards the evening, me, Ben, and Aaron. And that's when we took a trail that I hadn't been on called Elijah. And this one is very rocky. So it did have some steep and sendy parts, but the defining feature of this was riding over like even some longish rock gardens. Again, my bike managed it great. It would have been a very tough ride on the gravel bike. Just would have put my foot down a lot more. Erin was actually not riding the 90s Cannondale on this section, but she was riding Otis's Electric Queen with front suspension, and I was blown away by how great she rode when she was on that bike. It just shows you that, I mean, I think most people know this, but different bikes do make a difference, and this was a case where you could just completely see the difference in how she was able to ride, and actually was taking the front because there were spots that me and Ben was on his Gorilla Monsoon with pretty wide tires too, 2.3s maybe, I would think, maybe even wider. Oh, shit. But Aaron was just able to go over with the geometry of the Electric Queen and the front shocks. That's something to note. Don't hit Elijah if you are on very skinny tires. And I would even say if you're not a little bit skilled at navigating stuff like that. So it would kind of be too much hike-a-bike in that situation. I'm not a fan of hike-a-bike. I don't mind putting a foot down and walking features, but when I go out for a bike ride, my goal isn't, I'm not doing the Ronnie Romance thing. I do not want to walk 4 miles with my bike on my shoulder. Anyways, so yeah, things about my bike, like I said, the tires, just having 55s and 700 makes it like a steamroller to me for what I'm usually used to riding. The sweep bars, I think those were awesome. The leverage and just being able to get back off the bike, like I said. I really would have benefited from a dropper when we did the last trail. As a big group, we went down one of the steeper black diamond trails, and this one wasn't so rocky, but it was very steep, a lot of bank turns and a lot of tabletops. And like I said, if you don't know what's coming, so to be able to get the saddle out of the way would have been helpful. One thing we did here, though, on this day is we shuttled the cars. So we took a couple cars down to the bottom, the road parking lot, and then we all rode down, and then a couple people drove up back. So that's one thing you could do at Jake's too if you're not into climbing. In general, I don't mind climbing back up the hills. This was, my 4th mountain bike ride, and then I was going to go for a couple more rides that day. So it was fun to be able to jump in the cars and shuttle back to the top after a descent that actually takes it out of you because it's so steep and you're using so much effort. The other thing is you could also road climb out too, like just how we took the cars out. Me and Ben and Aaron did that on the ride where we rode Elijah down. We then jumped on the road and road climbed out because, yeah, the climbs out on the mountain bike trails can be pretty exhausting. They're fun, but they could be pretty exhausting too. So there's lots of ways to go about it. Back to the bike. I think because I was riding something different on top of riding more gnarly stuff, I definitely ended up more sore than I've ever been. Like even waking up the second day, I could tell how tight my shoulders were, and my hands were starting to blister from holding the bars. So they're just healing now as I'm recording this on Wednesday. Got back on Monday, so they feel fine now, but they're like forming the calluses from having that happen. But yeah, I think a combination of it being really gnarly and a different bike setup that I hadn't used for anything like that before. Just a little more information. Like I said, super primitive camping, but super cool. You don't need to be a cyclist to go to Jake's Rocks. There's, people hike the trails. There's other hiking. If you are not a mountain biker, there's lots of gravel roads to ride, but there's beaches down on the reservoir because Jake's is basically one mountain in a bend in the reservoir that's formed by the Kinzu Dam on the Allegheny River and where a creek meets it. So it's just, there's a lot of stuff to go and do. I actually used to do canoe trips up this way years ago, right from in front of the dam, do overnighters. I think I'd done that like 5 or 6 times. I'd love to go back in the summer and combine the two, do a couple days of canoeing, then a couple days of cycling. So, and like I said, just remember if you're going, you need to bring what you need. I mean, not that you can't run into a nearby town, but prefer not to do that if you don't have to. Everyone ended up taking off on Sunday at different times, Sunday afternoon into Sunday evening. I had been having a couple beers, and since I didn't get there till Saturday, I didn't feel like jumping in the car, and probably shouldn't have jumped in the car anyway, so I didn't. As soon as the last person left, it started raining. I figured I'm going to maintain the fire just in case the rain didn't last. There's no cell service up there either. I know Aaron was able to get some. I could once in a while get a text through, but no real internet. So I wasn't able to really look at the weather. I was kind of winging it. I hung out in the rain for a little bit and then finally got to a point where I had to call it and just hit the tent and went to bed early. So all in all, awesome weekend. First time I ever camped completely alone, which is surprising. Over all these years of camping, I've never ended up spending the night completely alone. First time for everything. So I am going to post for the channel members a full length of the Black Diamond Trail we did. I like the idea of showing something very realistic, and it shows like, yeah, this is what it looks like when someone who doesn't totally know what they're doing goes down a Black Diamond Trail. That's one of the things with this video in general. It was like kind of hard to decide how to edit it. In general, I only shoot clips that I'm going to put in a video, but when you're going down real Sunday stuff, it's not like I have time to turn off the GoPro or worry about it. I'm just gonna, if it started, it's gonna run. If I didn't start it, it's probably not gonna start. So to try and decide how to edit this, I'm like, man, I could put together like a 7-minute highlight reel that just makes everything look cool with some music. But one of the things I've always felt about this channel and like what I like to do is show like something fairly realistic. So kind of regular people doing stuff, not, you know, we are not Red Bull riders, and I also don't want to just make it all Hollywood and make it look like everything was awesome and everything is perfect and we have no troubles and all that kind of stuff. So let me know what you think about all that. I mean, I know this would be a boring video for like a true mountain biker who doesn't watch this channel, so has no connection to my personality or anything. But I think for people who might want to try something like this or are looking for a spot to go, maybe this is the kind of thing that makes sense. So yeah, let me know. But yeah, channel members, there's going to be a couple videos of the longer unedited runs that you'll be able to check out too. So if you're interested in that, there's links below and all that stuff. I'll finally act like a YouTuber once in a while. So, all right, see you in the next one. I mean, if this time for real. Peace. Where are you supposed to go?
bit of fire. I'm so done.